Frankenstein, Chapter 10. When the monster finished his story, I didn't know what to say. At first I told him that I would not make a wife for him. I was not going to make another monster that would hurt people. "Don't you see?" the creature answered. "I'm evil only because I am so unhappy. If I have company, I won't be sad, and we will not stay near people. They would hate us and want to hurt us. I will take my wife to another country, far away from any people." When he made this promise, I told the monster that I would make a wife for him. He said, "Begin your work soon. I will be there when it is time for her to meet me." I returned home. I spoke to no one about my meeting with the creature. How could I? I knew now that I had to make another monster. If I didn't, the creature would destroy everyone who was close to me. I began to look over the notebook that the monster had returned to me. I found that I couldn't make another creature without many months of study. But my heart wasn't in it at all. I put off starting the work for weeks. Then I read about some new discoveries in England. They could take months off my work. I had to speak to the scientists in England. I told my father that I wanted to go to England for a while. Of course, I didn't tell him why. To my surprise, my father thought the trip was a great idea. He had been worried about how quiet and sad I had been. He felt that travel would do me good. He thought that my friend Henry should go along with me. I knew that I couldn't let Henry know what I was planning to do, but I also couldn't say that I didn't want my best friend to travel with me. Once in England, I went to Oxford University. I spoke with the best scientists. I took notes. The scientists in England saved me months, maybe years of work. But I needed a secret place to work. Henry and I decided to take a vacation. We traveled north. The countryside was beautiful. We saw wonderful places, but something kept bothering me. I knew that my vacation would be over soon. I knew that I would have to find a place where I could work in secret. Then I would have to begin making a woman for the monster. I would again have to rob graves and cut up bodies. It was hard to enjoy my trip when I thought about these things. I also had the feeling that I was being watched. When I looked out on a beautiful lake or field, I would catch something out of the corner of my eye. Was it a person? Or was it the monster following me? I couldn't shake off this feeling. Finally, I found the place I was looking for. It was an island near Scotland. Hardly anyone lived there anymore. But there were 3 huts that I could use. They were perfect for me. I began my work. Henry did not live on the island with me. He decided to travel to Scotland and Ireland. We agreed to meet in a few months. I knew that Henry must not find out what terrible things I was doing on the island. When I made the first creature, I didn't know how it would turn out. I had high hopes to keep me going. I had dreamed that I was creating life. My plan was to make the world a better place. I dreamed that maybe I could even give life back to the dead. But I had no such dreams when making the second creature. Instead, I had fears. What if she turned out to be as ugly and horrible as the first creature? I had learned from the monster. Because he was ugly, the world had turned against him, had made him a killer. Would the same thing happen to a woman I created? But I had other fears too. My new creature might be very different from the first one. She might not want to be kind. She might choose to be evil. The monster had promised that he would take his wife away from people. Maybe she would not agree to go, and there was no way to know how she would feel about the monster. She might hate him as everyone else did. Then there would be 2 angry monsters loose in the world. But what if the creatures did go away together? What if they had children? What terrible things would their children be? I would have created an entire race of monsters. One day I looked down at the large body on the table. The woman was almost finished. I looked up. There at the window was the monster. He had followed me. He was watching me as I worked. He had a horrible smile on his face. He was waiting for his wife. Suddenly, the whole thing made me sick. I couldn't go through with my plans. I couldn't let two of these things loose upon the world. With a wild cry, I tore apart everything on the table. My work was destroyed. The monster saw what I did. He let out a cry of anger. Then he ran off. I left the workshop and went to my bedroom. I sat there for hours. Suddenly I heard a sound. I looked up. The monster stood before me. "Go away!" I cried. "I won't do it. I can't do what you want." "You dare break your promise to me?" the monster asked. "I have followed you all the way from Switzerland. I have lived like an animal just to be near you. I wanted to be there when my wife first opened her eyes. Now you have destroyed her." "Yes, I have," I replied. "And I can't keep my promise. I will not turn another monster like you loose upon the world." "I tried reasoning with you, Frankenstein," the monster said, "but hear me now. Remember, I have power. You think you're unhappy now? You have no idea what I can do. I will make you curse the day you were born." I told the creature that he could not change my mind. "Go away, you evil creature!" I yelled. "I can't stand to look at you." The monster stared at me. I thought for a minute that he would attack me. Then he got a hold of himself. "Very well, Frankenstein," he said. "I will go, but you have not seen the last of me. I will be with you on your wedding night." Then he was gone. I returned to my workshop. I gathered up all the dead body parts and put them into a sack. I took my small boat out to sea. I rowed for hours. Then I threw the terrible things into the water. Feeling tired, I sat back to rest for a few minutes. I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, a storm had come up. I couldn't see land. I had no way of knowing where I was. I didn't know how I did it, but I kept the boat from going under. When the sun came up the next morning, I saw land. I made it to shore. As soon as I landed, a man came up to me. "You will come with me right away," he said. "I am taking you to a judge and then to jail." "What's this all about?" I asked. "I don't know where I am. I never knew that Englishmen were so rude." "I don't know about Englishmen," the man said. "This is Ireland, and we aren't kind to murderers." My mind was spinning. What could this be about? "I have done no wrong," I told the man. "I was lost in a storm off Scotland all night." "You can tell that to the judge," the man said. Frankenstein, Chapter 11. I was taken to the judge's office. 3 men there told the judge what they had seen. They were out fishing the night of the storm. They found they couldn't make it back to town. They had to tie up their boat about 2 miles up the coast. There, they found the body of a man. He was a good-looking man who was about 25 years old. At first, they thought he had drowned, but his clothes weren't wet. They took him to a nearby cottage. In the light, they saw that he had been murdered. The marks of the murderer's fingers were still on his neck. The first part of their story didn't interest me, but then I heard the part about finger marks on the neck. I thought about poor William. Then the man talked about how I came to be in their town. They said that I couldn't have come from Scotland in such a storm. I must have been in this town all along. They believed that the storm had stopped me from getting away. They thought I had killed the young man they found. The judge listened to all this without saying a word. Then he said, "Let us show the body to this stranger." I went along gladly. I knew I had done no wrong. I guess they thought that a murderer would tell the truth when faced with the crime. I followed them into a room next to the judge's office. Then I saw the body. It was Henry. The monster had killed my best friend. The room around me went black as I passed out and fell to the floor. I can't remember much about the next 3 months. I knew that there were kind hands that cared for me. I saw faces above my head. I saw faces above my bed. Some were angry. Others were kind. I saw that I was in a jail cell. After a while, I began to come back to the real world again. Think of my joy when one day my father came to visit me. It didn't take long for him to set things right. A trial was held, and I was found not guilty. Because I was still sick, my father took me to Paris. Doctors there could help me. We stayed in Paris for a long time. Then, one day, I got a letter from Elizabeth. She thought I didn't love her anymore. She still loved me, but she told me in her letter that if I no longer wanted to get married, it was all right. How could I tell her of my love? The only reason we were not married was that the monster had said, "I shall be with you on your wedding night." But it had been some time since I had seen the monster. Maybe he was dead. Surely any man with a gun who saw the ugly creature would try to kill him. I wrote to Elizabeth. I told her that we would be married soon. My father and I returned to Geneva. We began to get ready for the wedding. All the time we were planning the wedding, I kept thinking of what the monster had said. I bought a few guns and knives. The monster might be dead, but if he were alive, I would be ready for him. I was not going to die on my wedding night. We had a wonderful wedding. It was very happy. All that had happened began to fade from my mind. We set off on our honeymoon. We reached our hotel at 8 o'clock that night. A thunderstorm came up. There was no sign of the monster, but I didn't want to take any chances. I took a gun and a candle. I set out to check each room in the hotel. Elizabeth was getting ready for bed. I was in the basement when I heard Elizabeth scream. Suddenly, I knew that the monster wasn't planning to kill me. He was after Elizabeth. I ran upstairs and into our bedroom. Elizabeth was lying across the bed, dead. Finger marks were on her neck. I looked up just then. Lightning flashed at the window. And there, looking in, was the monster. The evil creature was smiling. I aimed my gun at him and fired. I missed. He ran off and was lost in the storm. Men from the hotel helped me look for the monster, but we couldn't find him. It was as if the earth itself hid the evil creature. I felt a sadness I had never known before. I had never felt so lonely. I returned to Geneva as soon as I could. When I told my father what had happened, it was too much for him. I think he had loved Elizabeth more than any of the Frankenstein family. A few days later, he died of a broken heart. As I stood at my father's grave, my thoughts went racing back. The monster had kept his promise. William, Justine, Henry, Elizabeth, and now my father were dead because of him. A darkness covered my eyes, and I fell to the ground. I spent the next 2 months in a madhouse. My mind was gone. When I came back to my right mind, there was more trouble. I had to go before a judge to tell about Elizabeth's murder. I decided to tell the judge the full story. I knew that I was taking a chance. Anyone hearing the tale would be sure I was out of my mind. Yet I had to tell the truth. I showed the judge that I couldn't be mad, how all the parts of the story fit together too well for that. Thank God he believed me. "But what can I do about it?" asked the judge. "I would help you if I could, but this creature could be anywhere. He followed you across Europe. The weather does not seem to bother him, and he is stronger than any man." "It doesn't matter," I told the judge. "I will go after him alone. He is never far from me. He stays near me to enjoy all the sadness he has brought to my life. He laughs at what he has done. I will find the evil creature, and I will kill him, or I will spend the rest of my life trying." Frankenstein. Chapter 12. I decided to leave Geneva forever. Too much had happened there, but before I left, I visited the graves of William, Elizabeth, and my father. I stood there looking down at the gravestones. Suddenly, I heard a laugh from the darkness. It was the monster. "I am happy now, Frankenstein," the voice said. "You will be unhappy for the rest of your life. You will be alone, just as I am." Then it laughed again. I ran to the spot where the voice had come from. There was no one there. Just then the moon broke through the clouds. I could see the monster running so fast that no man could catch him. I tried to follow him, but he left me far behind. Since that night, I have chased the monster all over the world. He has never gone near towns and cities. He knows that people would see him and try to kill him, but now and then someone spots him and tells me. In this way, I have been able to follow him. Every time I want to give up, I think of William, Justine, Elizabeth, Henry, and my father. Often when I think I've lost him, the monster leaves messages for me. He cuts them into trees or on rocks. I know he does this to give me more pain. It works. But it also makes me chase him harder. Once I saw him get on a boat going to the Black Sea. I took the boat too. I looked in every part of the boat, but I couldn't find him. Later, I picked up his trail again. I grew thin. My only food was the wild animals I could kill. As I got farther north, I found one last note from the monster. It said, "Get ready. The worst is still ahead of you. Get warm clothes and plenty of food. We are going to a cold, icy place. I will laugh as you suffer." I bought a sled and some dogs to pull it. I bought food. The monster was so far north that he was almost at the ocean. I found a small village. The people had seen the creature. They told me of a giant who came to their village. He had guns and knives. He drove away a poor family. He stole their winter food supply, sled, and dogs. He headed north. I went after him. I stopped only to rest and feed my dogs. I would not sleep at peace until I caught him. Sometimes he was only a day ahead of me. Once I saw him. He was far, far away on the ice. I went after him. Just as I was getting close, the ice broke up. Cold, blue water was between me and the monster. Before long, he was gone. I haven't seen him since. I floated on a broken piece of ice for many weeks. All but one of my dogs died. I was close to death myself. Then your ship found me. You probably wondered why I asked you where your ship was going. As I have said, I will never give up my search for the creature. If you had been going back to England, I would not have gone with you. You are headed north, where I am sure the creature has gone. That is why I am happy to come on board. And that is my story. I have lost the monster. I would ask you to help me find him, but it wouldn't be fair. You want to go to the North Pole. It is a dream of your life. I just ask this. If I die and you find the monster, show him no mercy. He may talk sweetly. He may tell you how everyone has treated him badly. But he is the king of liars. His words may begin to change your mind, but remember William, Justine, Henry, Elizabeth, and my father. They all died because of him. Don't stop to think. Kill him. Only then will my soul rest in peace.